lies the nuance of occlusion. And there were intentional, apparently, misspellings in the text. So occlusion.
I question how intentional that
Agree.
is.
It's always entirely
Based
possible.
on things that we discovered later on, I think in the third one, or maybe it's the second one, but I really feel like maybe that wasn't intentional.
Well, there was at least one intentional boo-boo or unintentional boo-boo that was in there that caused the second part of the text to be misinterpreted for
Which is
quite a
why
while.
I questioned his statement of, oh, I did that on purpose.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you would hope that you wouldn't have typos in something and a very expensive thing that you're carving, so you would hope you wouldn't screw up. I think it's possible he did. He said that he intentionally misspelled a couple of words and also that he left a letter or two out.
See, this is too soon to talk about this.
Yeah.
We'll
Let's keep talking about
later.
the ciphers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the second one, which the key for that one was, by the way, abscissa, which is one of those obscure little words, the first element of an ordered pair. Now, like, for example, palimpsest. The palimpsest is supposedly hinted at by the shape of the sculpture itself. It's shaped like a scroll. Mm-hmm. And a palimpsest is that which has been recorded over or written over. And so the earliest scrolls, because writing materials were kind of scarce back in the day, often the scroll that was no longer used for much of anything would be scraped off. It had the characters would be scraped off of it, and then people could write over it again, and that's what a palimpsest is. Mm-hmm. So a palimpsest, in its earliest form, was a scroll. And so apparently, so that's the whole thing. It's like, well, don't you see the hint there, the big hint? It's a scroll, therefore a palimpsest. For me, it was like, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can see it now in retrospect, of course, but how somebody was expected to guess that, before decoding it, well, for Christ's sakes, give me a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of little hints like this, at least in supposedly, well, people say that the word abscissa, the second key, was hinted at in the first message. Well, I'm not seeing that, and I've read the decoded first message, and I'm not seeing it in there, but, whatever. I mean, these people must be a lot smarter than me, I guess. Let's look at this second message. Here's what it is. It says, it was totally invisible. How's that possible? They used the Earth's magnetic field. The information was gathered and transmitted underground misspelled, to an unknown location. Does Langley know about this? They should. It's buried out there somewhere. Who knows the exact location? Only WW. By the way, this WW was William Webster.
He was in charge at the time.
Director of the CIA at the time. This was his last message. Here the message gives some coordinates, which turn out to map to a spot about 150 feet southeast of the sculpture. And then that's followed at that point by two more words, which are layer 2. And nobody knows what the significance of layer 2 is yet. Maybe it'll all become clear someday. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate when you decode the messages. They're really not all that helpful.
A little vague.
A little vague. Yeah, a little yeah. And then we go to the lower rectangle, and there's I think 866 characters. No, in there, something like that. No, actually, 866 is the entire left-handed sculpture. So about half of that.
You counted?
So about 433 right in there, yeah. These, at least the first part of it, the first maybe three-quarters of it was encrypted with a totally different system. It was something called columnar transposition. And
this is mind-boggling.
Yeah, and especially how somebody could figure it out and decrypt it. Yeah, it really is. It took me a little while to actually understand this, and I actually was eventually able to figure it out. But, yeah, it's tricky. And so imagine this. So if you want to encrypt a message, you take your text, take all the punctuation and spaces out, put it in a Word document, so it's at least 3 or 4 lines, and you want to use a font like Courier.
Mono-spaced.
Exactly. Nothing with proportional spacing. You want every character to occupy the same amount of space, right? Mm-hmm. And then you print it onto a sheet of paper, and then you cut the text. You cut the text out into columns. So you got, like, say, 4 lines. So you got all these little snippets of paper that have 4 vertical letters on them, right?
And all of the columns are the same width.
Yeah.
So four letters wide.
No. They're 1 letter wide. 1 letter wide and 4 letters high.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was into group. The columns were grouped. Okay, I took it wrong. Got it.
Yeah, and you don't. So you cut out all these columns, and then in this particular case, what you do is you step through backwards. In this particular case, they chose to have 86 character lines. They step through backwards 7 characters at a time. So starting at the beginning with the first character, they step backwards 7. which took them to column 81, and then so you pull that snippet of paper out, set it next to the first one, and then go back 7 more, which is column 74. You pull that one out, set it next to the first one, and just keep doing that over, keep going around and around and around through the message until you've essentially rearranged all the columns in this pattern, right? Then take all your little snippets of paper and rotate them 90 degrees clockwise and glue them all together end to end.
Oh, my God.
Right? And then, at the end of all that, then cut it somewhere in the middle. And in this particular case, this text actually ended with a question mark. And when it was done rearranging everything, the question mark was about halfway through, a little more than halfway. So that's where they cut it. So this question mark wound up at the end of the encrypted text again. So they cut it right after the question mark, and they swapped the front and the back halves, and there you have it. That's your encrypted text. So,
so I see the look on Devin's face. So I'm going to put this in simpler terms. Yeah. You take a can of alphabet soup, and you pour it on the ground, and you read it. That's how this works.
Got
it. Okay.
That's about it. Well, yeah. So the contrast between the two systems is in the first half, the letters are all in the right place, but they don't mean the same thing. It's the wrong letter, right? Whereas in this case, none of the letters have actually been encrypted; they've just been rearranged, and so the letters are all in clear text. But good luck figuring it out.
Technically, in clear text.
Technically. Well, yeah.
Can I? This might be a dumb question, but here we are. Who made these ciphers? Did the artist make the cipher?
No, actually, he got. There was a guy who was the chief of the cryptography department at the CIA at the time.
So he made them.
Yeah, well, essentially, he and the artist sat down. I think that Jim Sanborn wanted to create these riddles because and then encrypt them. And so there was a collaborative project between the two of them as how to encrypt these things.
Got it. So I was thinking this was a kind of big undertaking for somebody who's an artist.
Well,
I mean, not that artists can't be, smart, but
yeah. Well, you never know. Sometimes people have hobbies too. There are people out there who do one thing, and cryptography is their hobby. So but he had a little help with this.
So what did that cipher end up being? Was it broken?
Yeah, this one was broken, and again, this is up through character 768 out of 866.
Okay.
So, and this is what's called K1 through K3. So the first 2 messages are in the top left rectangle, and then about 3/4 of the bottom left are K3. And then below that is what's called K4.
Okay.
That's what hasn't been broken yet.
Okay, but what did K3 say?
This last one, and nobody knows why quite yet, but it was taken from the diary of Howard Carter, who was an archaeologist who opened King Tut's tomb in 1922. And so he had this thing where he described, the opening of the tomb. So here it is, as deciphered by various people. Slowly, desperately slowly, the remains of passage debris that encumbered the lower part of the doorway was removed with trembling hands. I made a tiny breach in the upper left-hand corner, and then, widening the hole a little, I inserted the candle and peered in the hot air escaping from the chamber, caused the flame to flicker. But presently, details of the room within emerged from the mist. X. Can you see anything? Q. Question mark. Some little random characters thrown in there for some strange reason.
Well, like you will see in the translations of this text, in random places there are X's in the text, and those appear to be used as periods.
Sort of.
Or breaks.
They sort of mark breaks between sentences, but they're not consistently used.
You're right, and I was wondering what the heck was going on with that when I noticed that.
Well, a lot of people have wondered about that too. I mean, again, we rely on Sanborn to tell us the truth.
Right.
And if like you say, he screwed up and he doesn't want to admit it, well, hopefully he'd be truthful enough and honest enough, because he actually did make one error that he's admitted to, and he claims the rest were deliberate.
I guess part of me thinks that maybe he doesn't actually know. If he's not the one who actually, he worked in conjunction with somebody to create the cipher, but
and that person did.
It's totally possible that person was like, all right, this says what you wanted it to say, and he doesn't know.
Well, I think what happened is Sanborn was required to actually give them the contents of the messages along with the encryption techniques that he used. So I think what happened is he got trained up. They picked out a few really good cipher techniques, and then he got trained up in it, and then he encrypted the messages himself. And then he had to hand those over to the CIA, because essentially what they wanted to do was they wanted to know that he wasn't putting something in there kind of like,
CIA is a bunch of jerks.
Yeah, or, I mean, and so, they wanted to know what the contents were so they wouldn't be embarrassed when
he did all of the...
As far as I know, he did the encryption himself.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And so, and so what I'm wondering, what other people have wanted this too, is that given these strange little glitches, the weird things with the X's, moving characters around and stuff, if perhaps there isn't another cipher within that cipher.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, the deciphered message might itself contain some other enciphered message.
And I presume that people, since, K4 isn't solved yet, I presume that people have tried to get some kind of cipher code from the other 3 that might decode the 4th.
Oh, yeah.
And that hasn't worked, obviously.
Obviously, no, it hasn't. Supposedly, there are hints to the solution of K4 in the previous 3, but he hasn't said what exactly these hints are.
But the problem, if I understand correctly, with K4 is that it is so short.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the problems.
Well, so I mean, K4 is what? It's
97 characters.
Yeah, it's
long.
less than 100 characters long. Which the longer a cipher is, the more clues you can gather by patterns that are generated.
Patterns. Yeah, exactly.
But when it's such a short thing, without the key, you're pretty hosed.
Yeah, you kind of are. It does lend itself a little bit better to what they call brute force attacks.
Mm-hmm.
But where you just basically throw everything at it, and this only really works well if you have a computer to do it with.
Yeah.
Do it by yourself, you'll go insane. But with a computer, you can actually do a brute force attack pretty easily.
Which people have now done.
Oh yeah, for sure. And as computers get faster, our brute force attacks get faster too.
Yeah, Watson hasn't taken this on yet, or?
That's a good question. Why not?
I don't know.
This does seem like a good job for an AI, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's the rise of the machines.